Hello, and thank you all for being here with us as we present this panel discussion on the Vanderbilt Black Athletic Experience. This conversation is being presented by the Association of Vanderbilt Black Alumni and Vanderbilt Athletics. I am Myria Carpenter, President of the Association of Vanderbilt Black Alumni, and it is a pleasure to be with you today to facilitate this discussion. I would like to briefly introduce our panelists, three incredible leaders of the Vanderbilt Athletics program. Candice Storey Lee is Vanderbilt's Vice Chancellor for Athletics and University Affairs and Athletic Director. She's a triple door and the first Black woman to lead an SEC athletics program. Jerry Stackhouse is in his 5th season as head coach of the Vanderbilt men's basketball team, coming from an 18-year NBA career. Althea Thomas is approaching her 4th season as director of the cross country and track and field, with 18 years of coaching experience across Georgia, Clemson, Purdue, and Kentucky. Thank you all for joining us to discuss the Vanderbilt Black Athletic Experience. This is the first question for all of you, please. Along your personal and professional journey, how have Black mentors impacted you?
I would say that I deeply believe in the importance of the significance of mentors, and so I've been blessed to have a lot of mentors, but specifically thinking about Black mentors, like for me, I would say there are a lot, but 3 would come to mind for me. My parents, who of course, we have the same lived experience. They're Black woman, Black man who've had to navigate the challenges that come with being children born in the South in the 50s. And my parents, I've told this story before about how my dad was like a well-known athlete at his high school and went to an all-Black school. Of course, the schools were segregated. This is in rural Alabama, like northwest Alabama, Kennedy, Alabama, which is in Lamar County, really impoverished area. And his senior year of the schools, he was forced to be bused to a white school. And just, as I got older and started to understand from him, going from being like big man on campus, he was captain of the football team, he was, and if you know my dad, big personality, and then had to go and start over as a senior. And, I'm really proud as I look back, he goes to reunions now, and a lot of the friends there are white, and they talk about how when he walked in that senior year, he was captain of the football team, and everybody sort of fell in love with them, but how hard that must have been. And, my mother has similar stories, and they always taught me that, the world might see us a certain way, but don't let people put you in a box. And so that certainly had an impression on me. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about David Williams, who just in many ways, I think, I like to say Jim Foster brought me to Vanderbilt because that's who I committed to play basketball for, but David Williams kept me here. And he was the first Black athletic director in the SEC, and I think people underestimate the significance of that in the South, right, where Jim Crow was prevalent, and where you have a Black leader who's able to, really when you're an athletic director, you're in charge of big budget, a lot of people, you interface with a lot of folks, you're responsible for a lot, and so it was a long time before a Black person was given that opportunity. And to watch David handle some really tough situations with grace, and he gave me the opportunity to learn from him, and I will forever be grateful. So sorry for being so long.
Coach Stackhouse?
Yeah, I'll echo the same. As far as my mentors, definitely my mom and dad. And they're older than Candice's parents. My mom was born in 1929, so I was kind of an afterthought. She had me when she was 45, so But I just listening as a young one, listening to the stories of being able to, them just to persevere through all the things of being able to not even to go into restaurants and having to be served in the back. I heard those stories, and even though it was like a lot of my friends who had younger parents don't really have those experiences, I was able to understand how much of a privilege it is for us to just be here and doing the things that we're doing right now. From a mentor standpoint, one that stands out for me is Charlie Grantham. He was the executive director for the National Basketball Players Association, and he was always a guy that would tell me, you guys don't know enough. I mean, you went right from college to being, young professionals at the age of 21, 22 years old. Go back to school. So that prompted me to even as an adult to go back and try to further my education, to still learn as much as I can, to read as much as I can. And from a basketball standpoint, I just think Avery Johnson and Perry Clark are two guys that stand out to me. Those guys that, when they don't even hit you when things are going good, but when things are not going good, they're the ones that step up and make sure that you're getting that encouraging word because they've been there and done those things. So I really, respect those guys for just being the men who they are, and obviously their successful careers and able to always impart some wisdom to me when in this roller coaster that we ride.
Okay.
I think we all have similar experiences, one with our family. A lot of my social media handles have my dad in it in some way. He is a coach, and I'm always considered coach's daughter. But one of the things I remember growing up in Birmingham, I'm the youngest, and he started a youth program in athletics because of the need for my siblings. They were in tennis at the time, and we know tennis is a predominantly white sport, and it was not a good environment moving to Birmingham, Alabama in the early 80s to put my siblings in tennis. And so he started athletic programs, which ultimately led to a 42-year track program that he has. But watching him and then watching my mom, who is not an athlete but was in corporate America, but in spaces where she was not only the only black person, but probably the only woman, and even seeing the pain on her face sometimes, it just kind of taught me along the way, we never complained, they never complained, and they kept going. And so it taught me that when you see a need or when you see a challenge, you find a solution, you keep going. And it expanded from them to my cousin, who was the only person I knew personally who was a college coach. And he mentored me along the way on how to capitalize on my young career when I first started. And then definitely someone who was in the profession when I met them was Barbara Kennedy Dixon. She was the SWA at Clemson when I was there. And just how she handled her life and the department with grace amidst all the struggles, whether they were social struggles, whether they're her personal struggles. It really, really taught me how to continue to persevere in a landscape that probably my family couldn't talk about or didn't have an understanding in college athletics. And so they were very just impactful on how I moved today.
Thank you. For Vice Chancellor Lee, to set the stage on the legacy of Black athletes at Vanderbilt, can you tell us a bit about the Pioneers Program, recognizing Vanderbilt's first generation of Black student athletes?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I would say first that the idea came out of, there's probably 4 people that need to be recognized as part of this. So David Williams, when he was our athletic director, was really important to him to make sure that Perry Wallace understood that we appreciated the significance of his career and the doors that he opened by being the first Black basketball player in the SEC and at Vanderbilt. And he worked very hard to reconcile the university with Perry, and his jersey was retired. And I would say that actually is the beginning of it. And Andrew Marinus was a big part of that. Rod Gurley is a big part of that. And Rod Gurley, following the recognition and the well-deserved recognition for Perry and for Godfrey Dillard and for others, Rod said, there's a cadre of other people who are not as well known, who, maybe people haven't written books about them yet, or maybe people don't know their stories, but, a Candice Lee doesn't have the opportunity to be an athlete. An Althea and a Jerry don't have the opportunity to, those doors are open because of those gentlemen, and people deserve to know their names. And that's how the Pioneer Program came about. So, just a lot of kudos to Rod Gurley, who was dogmatic about making sure that those stories were being told. So the Pioneers Program recognizes those efforts. This is the second year. Well, this is the third year. We've sort of been incrementally building it, but it's a weekend where we bring those individuals back to campus and give them a chance. It's certainly an opportunity for us to publicly recognize, but it's also a chance for them to come together and tell their stories. We've been documenting their oral histories because we want, like, all of the athletes to come and the generations to come to not forget what they've gone through. And so I'm certainly happy to talk about it, but that credit belongs to David and to Perry and to Rod and to so many others. And Andrew.
Thank you. For our coaches, my next question. What environment do you aim to create for Black athletes?
For us, I want to maintain the same for our Black athletes, for all of our athletes, for all of our students on campus, and make sure that they understand that coming here is, that you can accomplish anything, you can do anything that you set your mind to. I think that's why we recruit. You're special just from the standpoint that you're able to attend Vanderbilt. Not everyone can attend here. I mean, it's funny when we go to a lot of the opposing arenas, our fans try to cheer the kids a little bit, and they always, the main thing they cheer them with is nerds, like hey nerd. And I'm like, and the kids take exception to that. They, like, I'm not a nerd, but it's like, man, you should be proud of that. You should be proud of the fact that the things that you're going to be able to accomplish from being able to come to this university and what you're going to be able to do beyond that. So I think for us, it's just trying to foster an environment that where you can achieve whatever you put into it, whatever you aspire to do, that you can achieve it here.
Yeah, it's funny, when I first got announced as the head coach here at Vanderbilt, Curtis Fry, who just retired from the University of South Carolina, called me, and he talked to me about when he was the head coach at Jerry's alma mater in North Carolina. And he talked to me for hours about how this was an opportunity for me to present, like Jerry said, a place that doesn't seem touchable for a group of people who are capable. And, as you're getting all these congratulatory calls, this call really went in a direction that I wasn't expecting, that really spoke to me. And then just over in the recruiting aspect in my first years here, and as we're here now developing these athletes, it's more of the same, making sure that this place is available. And when we bring them on campus, Candice says something to them all the time. She says, this isn't a 4-year decision. This is a 40-year decision. And so just opening that door for individuals. And then while they're here, making sure that they feel loved, have a place to be able to talk about insecurities or shortcomings, and using Dr. Nobles and the center there, and just using all of our staff to make sure that they get that experience that the general student does get. And it's a different experience, but in this unique experience, but it can be a great experience. And so that's just more of the aim, making it available, opening the door, and then supporting them while they're here.
Okay. Thank you. This question again is for Vice Chancellor Lee. What does student-athlete success look like in the classroom?
I think that just success in general as a student-athlete, so of course it would apply to the classroom, is maximizing your potential. So, one of the things I really appreciate a lot about Vanderbilt, but one of the things I really appreciate is that we try to meet people where they are and acknowledge that people have individual gifts and talents. Everybody's perspective is influenced by their experience. There's different ways to learn. There's different ways to contribute. We certainly understand that in sports. But in the classroom, success is when you can sit in there. I mean, like, the thing that's important, we tell our student athletes, like, they're having the opportunity to come and compete against the very best in the world. But they sit in the classroom and are sitting amongst the brightest in the world. And I'm like, the thing that you gotta know is that you're in that room too. So the person that's sitting by you is sitting next to some of the brightest in the world too. And that's really important, that you feel that you belong. And when you feel that you belong, then you feel empowered to exercise, like, all that ability that's in you and maximize your potential. We're just trying to give people tools that they can then go out and execute whatever their vision is. And that's what these coaches do every day. So if you apply that to the classroom, I mean, that's what that looks like. But I have to say this, like I remember when we interviewed Jerry, Althea actually had a similar thing now that I'm thinking about it. It just occurred to me. When we interviewed Jerry and he talked about, I always like to ask, like, why Vanderbilt? Why Vanderbilt? At the time, like I was not the athletic director, but even, and same with Althea, like, you know, I never wanted to have to convince people that this is the place. Like, they got to want it. And they both wanted it. But I remember that Jerry talked about the kind of student, the kind of person that seizes the opportunity in a place like Vanderbilt. And knowing that that's someone that's probably deeply committed and deeply intellectual. And you got to be those things to play in this system. But he said, because I understand the importance of the academic experience, but the basketball court is my part of the classroom, right? It's an extension of the classroom. And so, yeah, the academic experience, the classroom is like, depends on how you define it. Because I think she would say it's the track, and he would say it's the court. You know, and I would say it's the combination of everything that they are doing so that these young people are ready to thrive.
Excellent. What about the graduation rates? Can you speak a little bit about that?
They're high.
As expected.
Yeah, you know, the graduation rates, I'm going to turn it into a primer on how graduation rates work, but, you know, you have 6 years to complete, and, you know, both of these coaches have student athletes who are graduating from Vanderbilt consistently, and we're really proud of that. We're very proud.
Okay. Another question for you. What does internship and career programming look like for student athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud to talk about the Ingram Center for Student Athlete Success, which was born out of the generosity of John Ingram and his family. They wanted, you know, I loved how he talked about it. So when he talked about it with us, he said that the ability to prepare these young people for the 40 years that are to come, right, beyond the 4 years, that can be a differentiator for us. And it's not just something that will allow us to be more competitive, but it's also the right thing to do. And that's consistent with what we believe. And so the Ingram Center is, it brings together staff that are focused on personal development, leadership development, career development. Because we have about 400 student athletes and we're a pretty intimate community, that staff, which has been enlarged, that staff has the ability to work with each of their student athletes to create a pathway, a roadmap.
Gotcha.
That takes into account the things that are unique to them. And it's supported by what coaches and their staffs do every day.
Okay. My next question is for the coaches again. What does success look like for athletes that do not pursue a professional career?
Well, I think it looks like a lot of, for us, I mean, we've got guys that have graduated us, you know, taking on major jobs in, you know, NCAA. We got, you know, a number of guys that have gone on to the corporate world and had success. And in the real world too, we got some that's looking for some jobs, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the reality of it. And we try to make sure that we tap into the network and any resources that we have to be able to help them and to try to achieve the things that they want to do, you know, post their career, their college career. We try to maintain those relationships, but it's not easy. But when we have, like, again, some guys that go right away and able to soar right into a transition into their careers, and some that it takes a little bit longer. But again, that's part of that adversity that you learn to deal with in athletics. That's how it applies to life. It's not always going to be easy, but you keep working at it, you keep grinding at it, and through, you know, hopefully the relationships that we have, we're able to help them eventually find something that they love to do.
I think success, you know, not going pro in your sport, it's more than an extension of what you're doing here. Learning how to balance your responsibilities, learning how to, like Candice talked about, take those characteristics that it takes to be academically sound, not just on the track, on the court, but now in life. Mm-hmm. And so you really just become a pro at applying those characteristics. Mm-hmm. And it makes for usually a more seamless transition when that transition comes. A lot of my former athletes, they come back and even if it was a area that I felt like they struggled in or would really, really work to get better in, and they say, you know, my boss says I'm the only person that can do this well, and I said, well, you got really comfortable with doing something uncomfortable and being good at it. And, you know, at Vanderbilt, it looks like where we're talking about the graduation rate, and almost all of our athletes are on the track. They're looking at graduate schools. They either get a graduate degree from Vanderbilt or another institution, or we even have one that is traveling this weekend to take the MCAT. And, or I think it's an interview. She did the MCAT and now she has to travel for the interview, and we had to make sure it was conducive for the schedule, and she found an opportunity to do it on an off weekend. So that's what it looks like, being able to get those responsibilities taken care of when you have several responsibilities, because that's what they call it now, hashtag adulting. That's hashtag adulting. So you just really become a professional at that before the professional title is on your business card.
Okay. Next, this question is for Vice Chancellor Lee and for Coach Stackhouse. Both of you have a unique distinction in your role at Vanderbilt. Coach Stackhouse, you're the first Black men's basketball coach, and Vice Chancellor Lee, you're the first Black female athletic director in SEC history. Can you each talk a little bit about the experience and the milestone?
Well, yeah, it's definitely a milestone, and it's something that I definitely don't take lightly. Again, not only just to be in this footprint, be in the southeastern footprint, and to be able to come to a place like this, and be the first African American coach to you know, it's definitely a charge, and you know, and I accept it. I accept it with the pride, and my family. George and Minnie put me in this position and told me that I could do anything that I wanted to do, and I believed them. I was foolish enough to believe them, and I never thought that coaching would be exactly what I mean. I played for a long time. My career spanned almost 2 decades, but I always had. My mom was a teacher. She was a Sunday school teacher. She, you know, just taught, and I always saw how she, you know, reached out to everybody and nurtured. And I was kind of the same guy, even on my team. Toward the end of my career, I was the one that was, you know, I wasn't afraid of the young guys that was coming in feeling like they was going to take my job. I wanted to help them, because I didn't really have that when I was coming in. I didn't have that mentor. I didn't have that older player that wanted to help me, so I always wanted to be that guy. And toward the end of my playing career, Avery Johnson again asked me to come and be more of a, instead I was a player, but I was more of a player coach. And I think I just grew in that role. And it's, like I said, I didn't know I was going to be in Nashville. I was coaching in Memphis. I thought I was on a trajectory to be an NBA coach, and all of a sudden I get a call and I'm in Nashville. And so that's like, you know, God has a plan for you. You think you know your plan, you think you know what you want to do, but you know, he puts you in situations, and obviously I'm in a situation where I feel that I can thrive. I have a vision for where I want this program to go, and I got a great support around me to help us try to accomplish that.
That was well said, Coach.
Very well said.
I've like mixed feelings about this, because I think certainly respect the milestone that it represents, but I think it's sad that in 2020 I would be making history in that way, because I think that I know that there are so many people who just haven't had the opportunity. So I've got some mixed thoughts about that. I also know, though, the importance of representation. We all understand that.
Absolutely.
So people will see us and they understand, because sometimes it's so hard. I mean, you're a pretty gifted person if you can believe in something that you've never seen, right? You are a faithful and a gifted person. And so for people to be able to understand that this is possible, and it makes me think about my parents. See, you're hearing this theme, right? This thing, you know, my mother retired from NASA as a public affairs officer and was one of the few blacks in her role. I know she was a pioneer in her own right. And now as an adult, you look and you're like, man, I remember so many things that I didn't understand, and you take for granted because the strength and the fortitude that your people instill in you. It's just remarkable. And so I think that's really important to say too, because it's very hard what we do. It's hard. And I read an article, a gentleman who had been the president at Kenyon College, he recently left. I hate that I don't remember his name because I was blown away by this article. I read it last year and it was early in the morning and I was sitting next to my husband and got really emotional reading this article, and it was called The Cost of Leading While Black. And he talked about being in an environment very similar to ours where it is predominantly white and, charged with the responsibilities that come with leading, right? And he said that his experience had been, and he could look at different points of his career, and it was always the same, that everything was fine, if everybody was good, when things seemed great. And then when things got tough, you started to hear things like diversity hire and people saying something about you being black and people acting like that it's unmerited where you are. And we still deal with that. We're professionals. So we walk into our spaces and we lead because that's what we have to do. And we have to like clear a path so that people can come behind us. But I think people would be astounded, or maybe not, depending on who you are, what we have to contend with. And some of it is just pure ignorance, and some of it is hatred. And there's a lot of love and a lot of support, but there is a cost to leading while black.
But we're gonna be unapologetically us.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And that's exactly right. The authenticity that comes. I really admire that about these two in particular, because they do have a vision and they are gonna thrive, and they're gonna be themselves while they do it. And that doesn't mean that they're not committed to growing and evolving and learning. But what did you tell me yesterday, Coach, that the distinction between personality and character?
Yeah, I think that's huge. We talked about that exactly yesterday. It's just people, they see your personality, they see, people can't look past, again, that maybe my stoic, demeanor on the sideline, the fact that, I'm going to dress nicely, I'm saying, that Minnie and George gave me these big broad shoulders and I stand on the sideline. I'm going to be who I am. But again, that my personality, it's a difference, a distinction between personality and character. Character and integrity of what I give to this program and what these kids, I know, I feel that it's unmatched. So I'm confident in that. But again, like I said, not everybody can understand that. Everybody can see that, because I've had people say they don't like you. You're welcome to judge. You don't like my substitution patterns. You don't like the plays that I run. But you have people that don't like you because of a suit. You know what I'm saying, and how you dress, and so I think those are the things that we have to learn to get past and understand that that's part of the charge that we have, and not everyone's that way, and we feel the majority's not that way, but there is always a loud, small group that's going to always have more to say than they should, and we understand that, and we just have to deal with that and know that that's part of the charge that we have and the position that we have.
I don't know, when you talk
Took your
about,
job, sorry.
That's
I
okay.
know you did take a job. I'm
You're
like,
doing
was
it
that
so
my
well.
question? No, I mean, we joke all the time, and we are who we are. And I think even part of, our culture, being black, sometimes it's not what you say. You can give each other a nod. We see each other in the hallway, and that's just part of being who we are. And there's times that as we've gotten to know each other, if Candice comes to the track meet and she can see me from far away, and she sees something that happens that's good, and she give me the eye, she know I'm gonna do a little jig, and same, watching last year when Jerry won and they were on the sideline afterwards, and he kind of poked his chest out and he said, "Talk your talk," and I was in the living room like, "Talk your talk, Jerry." But that's just it, being ourselves and knowing that our personalities are going to shine, but we have a vision. We are professionals, like Candice said, and not everyone's perfect, and we're learning along the way, but our intention and what we are moving to do is to lead the athletes that we have, be representatives for Vanderbilt and be representatives as our own pioneers in a way. So.
Okay, well, one last question to close out. I could go on forever with you guys. What is the one thing you want our audience to know about the Black athletic experience at Vanderbilt?
I'll say this, Candice is a graduate of Vanderbilt, and I'm not, but just observing and talking to the athletes, we need to do more of this. We need more alumni to come by. One of the brightest moments, I think it was my first, I can't remember, it was fall of 21 or fall of 22. However, it was maybe the first big alumni weekend post-COVID. So a lot of people came out, and myself being new, I just got a few emails and texts saying this alumni wants to stop by. And when there were a lot of Black alumni that came to practice and talked to the athletes, it really just changed how the athletes could receive even me as a new coach and what I was trying to teach them about life. And the experience here is great. They're thriving, in the classroom, in their sport. But we definitely need to continue to do things like this and make sure that experience can, I guess, be impacted by, the experience of former alum, as well as so that our current student athletes can have a light down the tunnel and see where this can lead and why it's all working together.
For me, it was important for us to make sure that our guys are able to see someone who's gone down the path that they have. So that's why James Strong, he's been on our staff from day one, and he's like, I can talk about my experience at North Carolina. I can't talk about what it's like to be. And obviously, it's changed a lot, but to have a personal, someone that can reflect how this thing has changed and gone, he's invaluable to us. So we make sure that we try to reach back to any of our former athletes that want to get into maybe a graduate program. We had Rod Odom came in, and he was a grad assistant with us for a while, and just for those guys to see someone that has walked in the same classroom, walked the same paths that they've done and played in Memorial, understand what that takes. I think it's invaluable to have that experience with, especially have one on staff. So we're very thankful with James and what he brings to our program.
I don't know that I have anything to add to that. I think that was well said, and I think what you're hearing both of our coaches say is this appeal to alumni to stay connected with as part of this community. That's part of what's special about Vanderbilt, that you become part of it's Vanderbilt for life. And our kids need to see that, and they need to feel that, and they need to understand that's a differentiator for Vanderbilt, that you now have access to all of these people who support you. And I would say, this is about Black student athletes, and it's like what they're having to navigate can be very challenging. So we need all of you.
Well, thank you all so much for the conversation today, highlighting programs and initiatives we often don't have a chance to discuss. We truly appreciate taking your time to give us an inside look at the Vanderbilt Black athletic experience. For anyone interested in joining us for future program with the Association of Vanderbilt Black Alumni, please contact us at avba@vanderbilt.edu. We hope you will celebrate the great programs and legacies we have discussed today, and more as we recognize Black History Month together. And as always, anchor down.